nutrition, right? So today I'm going to go over some nutrition tips on improving body composition. And as you all know, healthy weight loss means improving our body composition. Most of us have a U shape, or I'm sorry, a C shape of our body composition, as you see here, which means that, the muscle mass is disproportionate from the body fat. So this is our body fat, this is muscle mass, this is the weight, right? So this is a very common shape for the body composition. This is also the shape of the body composition of the same patient after they lost 60 pounds. And if you see the C change into a D. So that is our goal, to change the shape to a D, which means that we basically bring down the weight, but at the expense of body fat. So that means muscle maintenance. When we maintain our muscle mass, our basal metabolic rate, our metabolism doesn't decrease as much as it does when we waste muscle mass. So the target is to lose less than 10% from the total weight, to lose it from the muscle mass. And if it's less, then it's fantastic. So the other benefit of preserving muscle mass means that we preserve function. So muscle strength. I don't know about you guys, but I want to be able to carry my groceries when I'm in my 80s. Now, I might choose not to, but I want to have that option. So I'm going to go next over some tips on how we can improve the body composition as we lose weight. So first, the quality of the protein we eat is very important. You have heard me say that not all protein beverages and supplements are the same. The over-the-counter shakes are not as reliable as the prescription meal replacements, both as far as quality and as the quantity of the protein. Also, the balance between carbs and fat and carbohydrates are basically important because it does balance the impact that beverage has on your blood sugar, right? So to give you an example, there's a lot of over-the-counter meal replacements that are low in fat, basically 0 or maybe 1 gram of fat. And in this case, that protein that is in the meal replacements will affect your blood sugar and will slow down the weight loss. So not just the protein in them is important, how much, the quality of the protein, how much fat, the quality of the fat. So unsaturated is always healthier than saturated fat. And then there's also important to have a little bit of carbohydrates there and some fiber. So the quality of our protein is important. So that's about meal replacements. However, when we're talking about real food, then we do want to favor, good, complete sources of protein, which is typically animal sources of protein. However, vegetable sources of protein are healthy as well. Just have to have a combination so we don't become deficient in certain amino acids. We're going to come back to that. So then the next tip on improving body composition is managing our stress level and improving our quality of sleep. So we forget that cortisol, the stress hormone, is a very important hormone, and it's the other hormone besides insulin that favors storing body fat around our waistline. So when we are stressed and when we don't sleep well, that will affect not just our quality of life, but also the cortisol level. It can affect our blood sugars. It can put us into weight storage easier. And also the emotional hunger is more intense. So managing stress with tools that are beneficial for weight management also helps, decrease the amount of calories that we can bring in, by stress eating. So we call that buffering with comfort foods, with alcohol. So that is like a black hole of, be a large amount of calories that we can bring in, not for physical hunger, but to manage our stress and to manage our emotional hunger. And, the amount of protein is important, how much. We're going to review today what is a good amount of protein based on our height and our gender. And not to forget that, yes, if we bring enough protein in our nutrition, those are the building blocks for our muscle mass. However, we need to exercise those muscle and exercise strength training 2 to 3 times a week. It's really proven not just to prevent muscle mass loss, but it also helps us build some muscle mass. So moving on to what the correlation between aging and our protein intake. So we all know that muscle mass loss is part of aging. What you might not be aware of, that this process starts affecting us at age 30. So that's when we actually start losing muscle mass as part of the aging process. We also tend to eat less protein as we get older, and we are more prone to developing insulin resistance, which in turn affects our body composition even more, creating more of that disproportionate body composition, the component of muscle mass and body fat. So as you all know, it is much easier to overeat carbs than protein. And as a result, our basal metabolic rate decreases the more muscle mass we lose, right? So whenever we're thinking about a slow metabolism, that is something that correlates to somebody that has a low muscle mass, because the amount of calories that we burn at rest, which is called basal metabolic rate, is directly proportional to our muscle mass. Resistance training helps preserve muscle mass loss and decrease insulin resistance. And also, it does not increase our hunger as much as cardio. So if you're going to ask me what type of exercise I need to do to help with weight loss and with insulin resistance, I will always say resistance or strength training. Now, that might not be the answer you're waiting for or you're expecting, but I am a big believer that it's really the strength training that helps us manage both our weight, and it really helps us preserve our muscle mass as we age in a healthy way. The perfect time of the protein intake for preventing muscle mass loss is throughout the day. It has to be distributed fairly equal between 3 meals and maybe 2 snacks. However, the snacks are optional, but you have to bring that extra protein that you would put into the snacks. You have to distribute them with the 3 meals. As far as the amount of protein per meal, on average, we have looked at this, and there's some data that about 25 to 30 grams of protein at each meal will stimulate muscle protein synthesis and reduce muscle loss. And that's why you will see that the prescription meal replacements have 27 grams of protein, so right in the middle of this range. So I use this table to calculate daily recommended protein requirements. And I have used this so much, it's already like in my brain. So when I look at somebody's height, I already can estimate their recommended protein. And I typically go by the ounces. So as far as, let's, for example, like a 5 foot tall woman, we go by the the average or the mid-range ounces per day is going to be about 14 ounces. And then we go within 2 ounces up and down. So even though it's 14, I like to go all the way to 16 ounces. And knowing that, you know, if you have a day in which you're like around 14 ounces, that's totally fine. But we're trying not to go over 4 ounces past there. So like we don't want to go over 18 ounces because then we're bringing too many calories, and even that amount of protein can affect blood sugar. So once we come up with the average, mid-range ounces per day, then we leave about 1 to 2 ounces range up and down. And that helps kind of give us a target for our protein. You will see that for men, the range is a little bit higher. So it's still by height, and there's a, you know, again, a range even within these ounces. So how does an ounce of protein look like? So on visuals for protein, I like to think of an ounce of protein as an egg, a slice of cheese, a slice of ham. Also, if there is, you know, chopped meat, you can think of like the car key remote as being an ounce. And you want to multiply that to make sure that you're getting your minimum of 4 ounces per meal. So that, like, for example, for breakfast, we're not going to eat 4 eggs, but we might eat 2 eggs, a slice of ham, a slice of cheese, or a 3-egg omelet with an ounce of shredded cheese. So we put it together so we can match that minimal requirement of 4 ounces. When we're looking at cooked meat, your palm size is approximately 4 ounces. If it is fish, it's the checkbook size, it's about 3 ounces. And of course, everybody's palm size is different, right? So, you know, a more accurate estimate of cooked meat is the deck of cards, which is about 3 ounces. However, you can go wrong if you estimate your protein intake by the size of your palm, because as a rule, everybody should eat their palm size of protein with each meal. So that means, you know, my palm is smaller because I'm only 5'1", but somebody that's taller, their palm is going to be bigger. So then it's very proportional. So if you're eating your palm size of protein, you are getting the minimum requirement for that meal. Now you have 4 palms a day as a recommendation, which means you have an extra palm size of protein that you can add to the meals or you can use for your snacks. So, you know, on average, this ends up that there's a larger meal that's a palm and a half. Let's say that's your dinner or lunch. And then you have another half a palm, which is about 2 ounces that you can use for your snacks, right? So moving on to labels. On a label, when we look at the nutrition, 1 ounce of protein is 7 grams on the protein line on the nutrition. So not up here, right? So not the actual weight of the food, but on the protein line. So for example, this serving of food brings 1 ounce of protein because it's about 6. So that's close to 7. And then the other thing on the labels, this is important, especially for those of you who are new to our program, is that we're looking at net carbohydrates, right? So net carbohydrates is basically the carbohydrates that are absorbed in our bloodstream and affect our blood sugar, and then in turn it affects our weight loss. So the total carbs is all the carbs that we're bringing in, that we're eating. The dietary fiber stays in our colon, so we subtract the dietary fiber from the total carbs, and then we subtract sugar alcohols. Sugar alcohols are natural sugar substitutes that are helpful in weight management because the majority of them don't get absorbed, so they stay in the colon just like the fiber. So then think of the net as the total carbs minus the fiber minus the sugar alcohol. And that is the net carbs that we're tracking. Now, we never subtract the sugars That's always part of the net carbs. And what is important for all of you to know is that that is just a part of the total carbs. So if you see a label that says 1 gram of added sugar, so this is added sugar, that means that the net carbs might be much more than that. It could be, 5, because this is just part of it. So always default and make your calculation on the net carbohydrates by using this formula. So the other thing to pay attention on a label is the fat, right? So you see here the proportion between saturated fat and unsaturated fat is important. So in this case, there's 2 grams of total fat, 1 gram of saturated fat. That means there's probably 1 gram of unsaturated fat. So that's about 50-50. When you look at the meal replacement, you will see that there's, I think it's 1-to-3 ratio of saturated to unsaturated fat. So it's about 6 grams of fat, and only 1.5 is saturated fat. The rest of it is unsaturated fat. So again, that's what we want to favor, unsaturated fat. And then, yes, trans fats are bad. We don't want to see any of those on the labels that we're eating. So moving on to talk a little bit more about protein as a macronutrient. As you all know, we have 4 macronutrients, or 4 macros: carbs, protein, fat, and alcohol. Both protein and carbs contain 4 calories per gram, and then fat brings 9 calories per gram, and alcohol brings 5 calories per gram. Protein is found in meat, in fish, eggs, legumes, nuts, and dairy products. Protein is essential for the body, and if you do not bring enough protein in your nutrition, your body will take it from your muscles and your organs. So this can lead to a disease state that is called kwashiorkor, which is a protein malnutrition state, and it can have pretty severe symptoms and negative effects on somebody's health. So protein can be used as a source of energy, but before that happens, our body needs to burn calories to start utilizing protein as energy. This is why when we eat more protein, we burn more calories, kind of like priming a pump before it works. Energy needs to be used just to start burning protein for energy. Protein is made of amino acids, and certain amino acids are common and other ones are rare or essentials, which means that we cannot make those amino acids in our body, and we have to bring it in our nutrition. If you are rare in those rare amino acids like tryptophan, tyrosine, and phenylalanine, you won't feel good. You are not happy, you feel hungry, because these are precursor to serotonin, which we look at as the happiness neurotransmitter. And also these neurotransmitters suppress appetite. So many times when we take SSRI, which we use for anxiety and depression, that can actually decrease our fullness feeling. So it can affect our appetite, and that's why it's very common with SSRIs or anti-anxiety, antidepressant medication that we gain weight because we feel hungrier, and many times not necessarily hungrier, but we feel less satisfied with the foods that we're eating, and we end up bringing more calories. So going back to the quality of the protein, it pays to eat high quality protein, because that's a protein that has a high concentration of tryptophan. And the typical protein source for that is eggs, right? So our egg consumption went down significantly when the low fat recommendation came out about, 30 years ago. So, but that was many times that theory that fat is bad for us has been debunked many, many times. So I always look at fat as worst case scenario being neutral for cardiovascular health, but really being very beneficial for our mood, for our appetite, for our weight management. So moving on to branched-chain amino acids. And again, this is types of protein that is found in like whey protein. These are really good for building muscle mass. And when, if we're overdoing that and we bring too much protein, that's, anything can affect our liver, because too much protein will store as liver fat. So just keep in mind that everything needs to be in moderation. And then as far as protein sources, choose grass-fed beef, chicken, and wild fish. And that is because, the farm and the farm fish, for example, is fed corn. The same thing with beef and with chicken and with grain-fed beef. Those have inflammatory markers. They have omega-6 fatty acids, and I did talk about this on the Nutrition Beyond Basics, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on that, but that is why we choose grass-fed beef, chicken, and wild fish, because it's a better quality of protein and there's less inflammatory markers in it. So to prevent muscle mass loss, we need to eat enough protein, distribute the intake throughout the day. We have to focus on good quality protein and favor complete sources of protein. Protein supplements can help us optimize protein intake and prevent muscle mass loss. They also are helpful to build muscle mass in weight maintenance and restore our basal metabolic rate. Strength training once or twice a week helps us prevent muscle mass loss, and again helps us build some muscle mass once we reach maintenance. It is very difficult to lose body fat and to build muscle mass at the same time. So for the majority of us, the target is first to lose body fat and maintain muscle mass. And in the maintenance, we want to build some muscle mass, but it's very, very difficult to do it at the same time. Athletes can do it. I've seen it on rare occasions, but it's definitely challenging to do those things at the same time. So moving on to benefits of using prescription meal replacements. Prescription meal replacements are basically the meal replacements that we use in our practice, right? So you are familiar with the New Direction line that we use. And these are high quality protein supplements that are well balanced for weight management. So like I was mentioning, we get not just good protein, but also healthy fats and a good balance, and they're all supplemented with vitamins and minerals. So in order to call a protein supplement a meal replacement, it needs to meet certain criteria. So one of them is to have between 25 and 30 grams of high quality protein. This needs to be well balanced with unsaturated fat and with a limited amount of carbohydrates. The supplement needs to be fortified with vitamins and minerals. And this is why, like a protein bar, for example, it's typically not a complete meal replacement, and it is more appropriate as a protein snack than a meal because it does not have enough protein and it's typically not fortified with vitamins and minerals. So a prescription meal replacement is designed for weight management, and it is a great tool to help you with appetite control, with stimulus control. It also allows a faster weight loss than whole food plans. And there's a lot of evidence that shows that 2 meal replacements a day will give a faster weight loss, when 1 meal replacement a day is more appropriate for a weight maintenance mode or a slower weight loss. Other benefits of using prescription meal replacements are preventing muscle wasting and protein malnutrition, and also developing the risk of decreasing the risk of developing gallstones. So when you are losing weight fast and you're not bringing the right type of fat in your diet, that means that your gallbladder is not stimulated, and that puts you at risk of developing gallstones. So that's why a lot of the stories that I hear is patients that had to have gallbladder surgery when they had a flare while they're trying to lose weight. So it's definitely a risk when losing weight fast. So as far as types of protein supplements, there's different sources of protein. Whey protein is a complete dairy-based product derived from milk. They're unique because they contain high amounts of essential amino acids. Our body does not naturally produce all these 9 essential amino acids, so they must come from our food, like I was mentioning before. Whey protein contains specific branched-chain amino acids, which are particularly good at building muscle mass. So that's why we recommend the meal replacements that are based on whey protein. Plant protein supplements are also beneficial and can help with muscle mass maintenance and muscle mass building. And most of the products out there, it's a combination of plant protein like pea protein, soy, and they're typically complete when made in combination, and they bring they're naturally low in saturated fat, which is good, and they have a totally different taste than whey protein. So this is a really good source of protein for vegans or for vegetarian. And then there's collagen peptides. These are beneficial to improve skin health and to decrease joint pain. However, these are not that great for muscle mass support. So we favor whey protein and then plant protein, pea protein as a next or a second choice. These are some lean protein sources. So we want to bring protein, but we don't want to bring a whole lot of saturated fat and the calories that comes with that. So this table is in the nutritional binder that you all received at the initial visit. Spend some time and highlight the one you like and the ones that you are willing to try. And remember to try everything twice before you decide if you like it or not. And this is something that one of my patients reminded me of this helpful suggestion today. So thank you for that. So in conclusion, protein is important for improving our body composition and for weight loss. Be intentional about protein, as this doesn't always come easy for most of us. Carbs and fats are much easier to overeat than protein, so we have to be aware of this and moderate their intake. Mindset is so important, and we can have a much better experience losing weight if we look at the meal plans as our choices that we make in order to feel better, to feel less tired, to be less hungry. So there's a saying that we see what we focus on. So if we focus on the foods that we cannot have, then we cannot enjoy all the good foods that we can actually have, and they're beneficial for our health and will help us feel better. However, at the end of the day, you all know that you can have anything you want at any time you wish, because you're all adults, but we choose to have foods that are helpful to us, that helps both with our health, with our energy, and with hunger control. So this mindset helps us ditch the dieter's mentality that is so common in our culture and transition to a lifestyle approach, which will make this journey more enjoyable than hopefully all the experiences that you've had losing weight in the past. So with this, I want to thank you, and I will open up for some questions.